Folks, I used to think that the mayor of a city had certain specific duties when it came to running a municipality, which is to say, make sure the garbage gets picked up, the drinking water is clean, the snow is removed from roads, potholes are fixed in the summertime, and so on. This might seem to be pretty mundane stuff, but it affects residents directly in a profound way. I mean, if the garbage does not get picked up, the city will soon resemble a cesspool, after all. So I was most curious to come across a document called C40 Cities, subtitled, quote, "A global network of mayors taking urgent action to confront the climate crisis and create a future where everyone can thrive," end quote. Now, as an aside, I'm so confused here. Are we currently living through a climate crisis or a climate emergency, or is it a climate disaster? I mean, can't the Greta Thunberg acolytes settle on one consistent scare word when it's attached to the word climate?
How dare you!
But back to the C40, which is not, thankfully, a type of explosive. Rather, it is a collection of almost 100 mayors of major cities who, jet set to Copenhagen or wherever and assemble like the mighty Avengers, except none of these cats have any superpowers. Here's an excerpt from their PR video. I wonder how much carbon was used to produce this opus.
I hear people say, your future's bright. But after this past year, I wonder if that's still true. When I see the news, sometimes I'm overwhelmed. What's going to happen to my family, to our planet, to the animals, to my friends, to me?
Make no mistake, we are in the midst of the fight for our lives, for our planet, our people, and our shared future. Around the world, we are grappling with an unprecedented pandemic, confronting fires on our hillsides, floods in our streets, and entrenched systemic inequality. A global crisis of this magnitude, one that transcends borders, politics, and ideology, requires nothing less than bold, united, global action to meet the urgency of this moment.
Mayors of the world's greatest cities know that our communities and residents are already feeling the effects of the climate emergency firsthand. They know we cannot wait this crisis out, so instead, they have raised their ambition by committing to cut their city's fair share of emissions in half by 2030 and are already taking bold steps to make this happen.
Mayors are delivering on a shared vision for a green and just recovery from the COVID pandemic that puts equity and inclusivity at the heart of our decision-making, prioritizes investing in crucial public services, creating good green jobs, supporting essential workers, ensuring access to healthy and sustainable food, and giving public spaces back to people and nature. Mayors know that cities can't do this alone, which is why they are working collaboratively with young people, labor leaders, heads of state, businesses, investors, and citizens.
If we all work together, we are not only capable of leading us out of the climate crisis, we will build a world where everyone is included and everyone is safe, where we can look our kids in the eye and tell them that their future is indeed bright. The actions we take this decade, starting today, will determine the future of humanity and all life on our planet. Together,
We can.
We must.
change the trajectory our planet is on.
Join us.
Cutting emissions in half by 2030, in less than 8 years, right? Well, as ex-Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne would say, that's a stretch goal. And that last line in the video about changing the trajectory our planet is on, You know, that sounds like a job for Superman, not a bunch of very ordinary politicians. I mean, come on, Toronto Mayor John Tory is somehow going to change the planet's trajectory? Give me a break. I mean, back in 2020, it took Mayor Milquetoast 3 weeks to clear a bunch of hobos operating under the banner of Afro-Indigenous Rising out of Nathan Phillips Square. And once they were booted from the grounds of City Hall, they merely marched northwest to Dufferin Grove Park and turned that parkland into a hellhole for a good chunk of the summer, too. We were there for cleanup time. Check it out.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm just reading your breast. What does that say exactly?
It says no justice, no peace.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
It's not on behalf of anybody else.
It's not necessarily helping the situation because this is what they're here to do. They can't use any of this footage anyway.
Did they trigger you?
Get out of here. Get out. Get out. Get out of my face. Get out of my face. Get the f*** out of my face.
You have white skin. You're always occupying every f***ing space in this.
Yeah, Mayor Tory can't even take care of his own backyard, but he wants to save a planet that doesn't need saving? In any event, under the descriptor, what we do, the four-pronged agenda of these mighty mayors is set out. 1. Raising climate ambition. 2. Influencing the global agenda. 3. Building a movement. And 4, scaling up climate action. Call me a nitpicker if you must, folks, but what exactly is the difference between raising climate ambition and scaling up climate action? And what's this obsession these mayors have with climate? Gee, I think I'm about to have a Jan Brady moment here.
Marsha.
Alas, it only seems farcical until you read the nitty-gritty fine print. For example, under scaling up climate action, there is a notation that 30% of global emissions come from food systems, that 1/3 of food produced is wasted, and that 14 cities have pledged to reinvent their food systems by 2030. Gee, there's that new doomsday date again, eh? 2030. Didn't we learn anything from the Mayans who predicted the demise of the planet as of 2012? How did that go? Yeah, the Mayans could see some 500 years into the future, but didn't notice Spanish conquistadors sailing into their neck of the woods in real time. But I digress. The C40 people say, quote, the global food system is broken, end quote. Well, we are seeing prices rise during this period of stagflation, to be sure. Much of that is due to idiotic policies by both the Biden and Trudeau administrations, depending on where you live. But to call the system broken, that's a stretch. Yet, because it is allegedly broken, it therefore must be fixed, even though, as Henry Ford once said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. In any event, the C40 mayors are big on, quote, integrating food policies that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and increase resilience, end quote. And then there is this little nugget, quote, support an overall increase on healthy, plant-based food consumption in cities by shifting away from unsustainable, unhealthy diets, end quote. Okay, folks, you see where this is going, don't you? Emissions are bad, plants are good, so it's time to eradicate those flatulent and belching cows and pigs and lambs and whatnot, because those delicious critters are just so bad for the environment and the planet. The C40 mayors would rather we, quote, align food procurement to the planetary health diet, ideally sourced from organic agriculture, end quote. The planetary health diet? Who's responsible for this Orwellian menu? Is it the United Nations or the World Economic Forum? They won't say it out loud, of course, but a key piece of the climate food agenda is eliminating meat production in the name of saving the planet. And indeed, look what is happening in the Netherlands right now. The Dutch government has declared war on its own farmers by declaring war on nitrogen, a key element when it comes to farming. And here in Canada, the Justin Trudeau Liberals are proposing a policy that will require farmers to use less fertilizer. That will mean lower crop yields, less profits, higher prices for you and me, and more family farms going out of business. Oh, and it should be noted that this proposed policy wasn't concocted by Agriculture Canada. Rather, it's the handiwork of Environment and Climate Change Canada, all in the name of making Canada a zero emissions nation in the future. In fact, farmers and agriculture industry groups, they weren't even consulted. And hey, what would they know about growing crops and raising livestock after all? And consider this, I don't think a single week has gone by this year without yours truly coming across yet another glowing article pertaining to humans eating insects. Here's a BBC feature from July 20th. It's entitled, "Could Grasshoppers Really Replace Beef?" But all you really need to know about the article appears in the subhead, quote, "For most people in Europe and the US, the idea of eating crickets and grasshoppers can seem revolting, but they are a popular snack in parts of Africa and Asia. Not only are they packed with nutrients, but they are less harmful to the climate too." End quote. I'm sorry, but the sad truth is this. Bugs are eaten in third world nations not due to desire, but rather due to necessity. Are you trying to tell me that a Ugandan would take a mealworm sandwich over a cheeseburger if given the choice? Come on. But with the C40 group of 96 mayors, they have clearly signed on to that nefarious agenda of building back better. Yet, do they even practice what they preach? The next C40 World Mayor Summit is scheduled for this October in Buenos Aires. Do you think for one second that Mayor John Tory and the other mayors will be riding their bicycles to Argentina this fall? Do you think His Honor is going to chomp down on crickets as opposed to a fine Argentinian steak come mealtime? But that's the thing when it comes to virtue signaling. You merely have to talk the talk as opposed to walking the walk. And it is outrageous to think mayors have the power to enact concrete changes in the first place. Most of the things they are yapping on about fall under the bailiwick of states and provinces and countries, not municipalities. Methinks these mayors surely must take the advice of that WWE scholar, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
You know your damn role and shut your damn mouth.
You know, folks, what we are seeing now from the elitists who comprise the UN and the WEF and now the C40, it's quite uncanny in one sense, which is the resemblance to the world depicted in the 1973 science fiction movie, Soylent Green.
New York City, in the year 2022. Nothing runs anymore. Nothing works. But the people are the same. And the people will do anything to get what they need.
This is the police.
What they need most is Soylent Green.
The supply of Soylent Green has been exhausted. Return to your home.
Indeed, Soylent Green is set in our current year of 2022. And the thing is, it is downright uncanny how many things this film got right, despite being released a half century ago. Case in point, assisted suicide is not only legal in the world of Soylent Green, it's actually encouraged. And of course, there's the title of the film, Soylent Green, which refers to a synthetic foodstuff. Now, if you haven't seen the film, I won't say what Soylent Green is derived from. That would be a huge spoiler. But let's put it this way. The product of Soylent Green makes edible insects kind of look like filet mignon by comparison. Yet in the here and now, in our real world in 2022, when it comes to the war on traditional farming, and when it comes to the global elites dictating what they want us to consume, sorry, but I'm simply not buying what they are selling. To put another way, to paraphrase the greatest political quote ever uttered by the star of Soylent Green himself, that being the late, great Charlton Heston, I'll give you my hamburger when you pry it from my cold, dead hands.
What you just saw was an excerpt from my nightly show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every weekday, I do a monologue. Usually it's about half an hour. Then I interview an interesting guest, and then we read my hate mail or my fan mail, whichever is more fun. It's only available behind a paywall, though. That's how we pay our bills here at Rebel News. We don't take a dime from Justin Trudeau. But the good news is it's only $8 a month, about half the price of Netflix. And in addition to my nightly show, you also get weekly shows from 4 other friends here at Rebel News. So you're getting 36 shows a month just for $8. I think it's worth it. And even if you're not quite sure, do it anyways, because we rely on viewers like you to keep us free and independent. I promise you I'll never take a dime from Trudeau. Just go to rebelnewsplus.com and click subscribe. Thanks.